One thing I like about plants is the endless questions I have about them. And the one that I had recently that I thought um, was interesting was about psychedelic cacti. Specifically, my question was about a plant called myrtillocactus geometrizans, or the blue candle cactus. Being an owner of a couple of these cacti for grafting purposes, I was excited when I heard someone online say that these cactus contain mescaline, not because I particularly want to do it, but more just for the historical importance. And this, sacred cacti would be like just an honor to have in my collection. I live in New York, where San Pedro or Trichocereus cacti can be grown legally as ornamental plants, while peyote is illegal to grow or possess. But for Myrtillocactus, I knew that this plant is legal and commonly sold at like garden stores and greenhouses. So curious and not knowing many experts in the field I can ask, which would be my first choice, I took to Google. And I simply asked, is Myrtillocactus geometrizans psychoactive? And, you know, Google had one answer and YouTube had a different answer. So I'm going to show you both points of view and let you make your own decisions and give your input because I would love to hear what you have to say. So the first result on Google came from a website called shroomery.com, and a user named mescalinechemist posted a thread. And, I'm not going to be Buster from Arthur being like, people tell lies on the internet, because this could be false. I don't know that this guy knows what he's talking about, but he knows seemingly more about chemistry than I do. So I'll recount what he said on this thread. He said, cheers, I have some cut blue myrtle segments in the shade. We'll slice them up, freeze dry them, and get them quantified for alkaloids once I get the HPLC working again. We'll keep you guys updated. I am hoping for at least moderate quantities, like zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 would be enough to be viable as a backup as long as somebody could do an alkaloid extraction. I live in a very oppressive city-state with regard to psychedelic sacraments and would be greatly heartened if even here there exists some ethnobotanicals that have slipped through the police state radar. Plants offer hope in this sense. I have a strong interest in generating some mescaline-producing yeast that can be easily transported and proliferate. The biosynthesis, in short, and only 3 genes are involved in the conversion of dopamine to mescaline, a hydroxylase and 2-methyltransferases. The only way we will beat these guys is by making sacraments abundant and controllable. Very sad I have to leave my San Pedros in my home country. I feel for this guy and his plight, and I don't really know what genes have to do with dopamine or any of that, like the chemistry side of things. He could be incorrect. So I would love if somebody with relevant information would speak on that. Um, but yeah, I like that this guy is doing this for everybody. He's testing it, and that's something that I kind of want to do. I kind of want to buy a test for mescaline and see if I can find a substantial amount in the blue candle cactus. So, mescalinechemist then goes on to say, thank you guys. Like I said, I am working on quantification. You might know that absolute quantification is difficult to do on a mass spec without a standard. I will extract the alkaloid fraction and measure by weight and then HPLC-MS to get an estimate of the concentration. I understand mescaline is widespread throughout cacti, however, the amount detected could possibly be a viable backup mescaline source for those who don't have access to the more potent/viable mescaline sources. Triple quads are not very sensitive in mass scan mode. Compound must be present in reasonable concentration to be detected without a time-flight mass spectrometer, which we don't have. I live in a certain Southeast Asian city-state and have not had any luck locating San Pedro or Peruvian torch. However, blue candle are reasonably easy to obtain. I will keep you guys updated. So the summary I got from that post was that not only is he testing if it's present, but um, he's testing how present is it, or at least trying, and he's also, given his limitations, also attempting to understand um, where it falls on the scale in comparison to alternatives, more commonly used alternatives for sacrament. Um, and I think that that's really cool. If he's not talking out of his ass and he actually is like doing real chemistry, um, that is very cool, and I admire this guy for doing this before me. Because it's a thought that I had. I wanted to try to see if the claims of psychoactive stuff in it was true. In the last post that mescalinechemist made on this thread, things get interesting, where he says, the headline is Blue Myrtle, in parentheses, Myrtillocactus geometrizans, verified to contain mescaline. He says, I am reposting this from the Getting Started forum. I realized it would be more appropriate here. I am new here. Using a triple quadruple mass spectrometer, a xylene extracted alkaloid fraction from the cactus Myrtillocactus geometrizans was analyzed. Mescaline was the most abundant alkaloid with a primary ion M/Z of 212, with a fragmentation voltage of 35 volts and a collision energy of 10 E capital V. The molecular ion at 212 M/Z was fragmented into characteristic mescaline fragments at 195 and 180 MZ, confirming the presence of mescaline in the blue myrtle cactus. Quantification was not possible without valid standards, which, as you all know, are tough to obtain for such informal research. Hopefully this helps people in areas where trichocereus, etc. are illegal/hard to get. Yet the similar looking and innocuous blue myrtle is easy to obtain. So, this is where stuff gets real with the chemistry, because, as you could tell, there's a lot of stuff in there that he's talking about that I have no idea. I'm into botany, but I'm not into chemistry, and I have no idea what he's talking about. And I know that, in essence, he did say that quantification was hard. Basically, that he was unable to really say how much exactly was in the plant. But he was able to say that it was the most abundant alkaloid in the cactus, which doesn't mean that it's even comparable to the Peruvian torch or trichocereus, but it does mean that if he's right and he actually did this chemistry, that it does contain mescaline. So there I had the case for it being hallucinogenic. Searching Google, I wasn't able to really find many other people talking about it, frankly. And I think that this is the case with a lot of questions that I have. I had some misconceptions first getting into succulents and cacti, where I assumed that there's been shitloads of scientific studies and research into them, and everything's already been covered. But really, there truly are some mysteries out there, and there are important questions to be asked in the botany world. Not that I think that this is really too significant, but it interests me. And so when I went to YouTube and I tried to get a differing opinion, I found this video by a channel called Double Blind. And on it, a man who is into cacti named maxmonstrose speaks on the blue myrtle and says that it is inactive. Now, I'll show you the video, and then we'll talk about it.
Black, tiny ribs on a bright blue cactus is not a trichocereus. That is myrtillocactus. And that's also native to Mexico. That's a native columnar type to Mexico, but it is inactive.
So myrtillocactus sounds like the coolest Transformers movie, and honestly, him mispronouncing the name that much kind of makes me sus that he knows what he's talking about, if I'm being real. I'm sorry. Like, I don't get on people about mispronouncing Latin because it's hard and I'll mispronounce shit myself, but oh my god, that's real off for you to be making these sorts of claims. And while you are correct, Max, about that being a good way to distinguish between trichocereus cacti and myrtillocactus, I don't know that you know that it's inactive. I'll say that, you know, but I would love if you shared your input on this because while while I'm a little suspect, he could be right. He could be absolutely right in that while it does contain mescaline, it is in such a minuscule amount that he shouldn't even mention it. It's inactive, you know. So um, outside of me actually eating my blue myrtle cactus and testing that way, I would love if people with relevant knowledge um, into biochemistry and cacti would chime in and let me know what you think.